Hi, good evening, everybody. This is our office hours in the month of July, and today we have a very special guest, Kevin Coyne, who will tell you about himself and how he knows about Hyperscore.
So I'm a middle school music teacher in Waltham, a little city just west of Boston. And I have a very hands-on approach to teaching music. I don't teach my music classes as a music appreciation class, but more of a hands-on making and creating performing class. And a number of years ago, I had a connection with Todd Mackover through some students at my school, and it was when Hyperscore was first coming out. So we did a little pilot study of using Hyperscore in my classroom. I do a lot of focus on composition and creating, and it was the perfect tool to have kids kind of create and make music without having to worry about reading notation or knowing how to perform an instrument perfectly. And it worked out great, and I'd been using it for a number of years since.
So when you used it with your students, what did you notice right away, or what was that like in terms of how students reacted to it and how they responded, how to change their relationship to music?
Sure, it was immediate engagement. When trying to use notation software, there's a big kind of roadblock there where the student's trying to create stuff and make it sound interesting to them. When you're dealing with just quarter notes and eighth notes and real simple scales and melodies and rhythms, that's really elementary and really kind of boring for my middle school students, even though they might not play an instrument or have years of experience studying and playing music. They have a very advanced set of ears. They hear very complicated music and very complicated rhythms in all of the pop music that they listen to. And so trying to use simple, notation program and trying to teach them notation and how to write music, with kind of standard Western notation was really difficult for them because it was boring, actually. Not difficult, but just boring. They couldn't really create anything that sounded interesting. And Hyperscore, since it was so much more visual and not focused on standard notation, they could kind of draw what they wanted to create. And it was really easy for them to see, okay, I need something higher, I need something longer, shorter, and move things around. And so it was immediate engagement. And things really took off. They were really proud of the things that they created. They loved messing around with it and experimenting with it. They loved showing their friends the compositions they came up with. It was a big game changer for me.
Great. And at the end of the semester, what did you do with their pieces?
So a long time ago, I don't know what it's called now, but there was this amazing thing in Vermont called the Vermont MIDI Project, where they worked with local symphony orchestra performers and had students compose songs in their class. And then at the end of the year, they had select a few of those songs and had them actually performed by the symphony orchestra members who had helped out with these students compose. So again, this was years ago. So this is right when wikis first started coming out. So I had created a classroom wiki where kids could post their music. And then I invited a couple of my musical friends in the Boston area to comment on their compositions and leave notes for them. So the kids would come back in the next class and they would see these notes from these professional musicians in the Boston area on their compositions, and they were very excited about it. And so I kind of took that model, and then at the end of the year, we took a couple of songs from each class, and I brought my professional music friends into the school, and we did a concert that night where we performed the kids' performances for them. We took a screenshot of the visual composition from the Hyperscore, displayed that in the background while we sat up on stage. It was drums, piano, guitar, and keyboard, and kind of recreated their songs live for the audience.
And what was the reaction from the students when they heard their pieces
They thought it was
performed?
awesome, obviously. I mean, who wouldn't want to sit there and hear these guys play their songs? It was really cool. It was really eye-opening, and they loved every second of it.
Yeah.
And it was really important, I think, for me to see that from the kids, because my classes, these are not students who are going on to become professional musicians. Most of them will probably not take a music class after they leave my middle school. But that's not the point of my class, is to teach and to train students to become professional musicians. It's just to give them a positive music experience. And a lot of them haven't had that previously in their elementary school experiences. They just, maybe they played clarinet and it didn't sound very good, or maybe they were in chorus and people laughed at them because their voice was changing or something like that. And they've got negative experiences, and they come into my class not really wanting to do music. And then here they are, composers now, right? They're creating music, and they're having their performances or their songs performed live for them. Yeah, and it was a really big positive experience. And I just hope that they took, a much more positive view of music making, active music participation with them once they left that program.
Yeah, I feel like it was a shame that there wasn't something you can continue doing through, because it was just you and your,
Yeah, it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work, but it was fun. And later on down the years, unfortunately for my school, we changed technologies, and we moved. And June, you and I had talked about this a long time ago, but we had switched to iPads. And back then, Hyperscore wasn't web-based, so we couldn't use it anymore. We kind of fell out of touch with that. But now that Hyperscore is more web-based again, my school has moved back to Chromebooks, and now we can kind of jump back in and hopefully repeat the process.
Well, I'm excited to hear what happens. Well, I was at that concert and it blew me away. I mean, slightly biased, but even knowing Hyperscore as I did, I thought it totally exceeded my expectations of what kids that age could create. And I don't know if how the other parents felt. I mean, I thought it was really surprising.
But the other kind of fun thing about the program too is when you talk about composition, and I think June, you and I have talked about this before, it kind of has this almost stigma attached to it that you're supposed to be composing, which means your music is going to end up sounding like something that was written for an orchestra to perform or a concert band to perform. And when you talk about composers in a classroom, you're talking about people like Bach and Beethoven and Schoenberg and these people that a lot of my students really don't have any connection to. And so I didn't treat it as here we go, we're going to compose a motif, and we need to have that motif repeat X number of times, and we need to have a transposition. I just said, go to it, right? I gave the kids the program, show it how it worked, and said, make me something. And so they didn't go into it thinking that they had to create a composition that would sound like for an orchestra to perform. I showed them how to make, using just the percussion rhythmic template, how to make a simple backbeat, something similar that they would listen to in the pop songs. And then it was easy for them to kind of take these little melodies they created and turn them into something that sounded a little more like the stuff that they're used to listening to outside of school, the music for their own enjoyment.
Yeah.
So in the new system, we have an account that gives us access to cloud storage, like a lot of learning management systems. As an educator, you can create a classroom, invite the students to a classroom, and then share work or give assignments in that way. And that's just a little bit of here. There's more detail to that, but I can just pop right into here and create a new Hyperscore composition within that framework. And this hopefully will look quite a bit familiar to you from the classic version of Hyperscore, but this is all web-based, works great on tablets and Chromebooks and iPads, so we don't have those technological constraints anymore. And all the familiar types of windows are still here. You've got the melody windows, percussion windows, and the sketch window. And you might notice a few things that have changed. The percussion windows now show the percussion instruments, and you can hear them just by clicking on them. We also have the instruments and the melody windows pop up here, so we don't have to go into a menu the way that you did in the old version. Part of this is to make things more user-friendly for touch devices, where going into menus can be a little tricky. We've surfaced a lot of those with nice big buttons right here. So I can click on things. I can pull up my meter settings very easily. So it's a few notes. That. So again, color is very similar, although we have a color palette attached to each window here. And I'll draw a line. This, and also let's make a baseline blue. Start with general harmony. See what that sounds like.
Did you have like the key? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry?
I was wondering if you had the keyboard shortcuts in the old version, like if you hold the shift key and draw it, it'll
Yeah,
make
so
it
if
a
you
straight
hold the
line.
shift
Yeah.
key, draw, we've got a bunch of some new keyboard shortcuts. Some of them are a little different just because of the web platform. Of course, if you're on an iPad without a keyboard, sometimes things that were only keyboard shortcuts also have another way of accessing them in the user interface. But it certainly all of the shortcuts that you'll be familiar with are still there, or at least are available as shortcuts if they've changed a little bit. And our harmony line, of course, tweaks to that. Yeah, it's hopefully
Yeah.
seems familiar.
Yeah, definitely.
There are a couple of different things perhaps in the interface. Here we have the options to show, you can kind of see in the background here, the teardrop shaped notes that you from the old Hyperscore, but we found some users prefer the blocks that look more like a piano roll. We can also show colors for, this is often for younger students or students that have multicolored instruments like boom whackers or xylophones. They can identify pitches that way. And then CC can speak to the popularity of our theming system in Hyperscore, so we can actually change the look of Hyperscore altogether. So it's a great thing to pair a theme if you're doing different genre of movie. Doing an old movie, we have the cinema theme, the nice black and white movie theme.
You that this day in class, I usually give them this as a reward after they've written their first melody and rhythm. And this blows the kids' minds. They're like, what is this? This is so cool. And I want this one and I want this one. And it's really interesting, the variety of the workspace and how motivating it is to have the workspace be exactly what you want it to look like. And this is a very popular one, Blacklight. And Cotton Candy is also very popular. He's already showed you that one. Blacklight is really popular.
Um,
And I think another difference, the old one had these vaults at the bottom where you saved
Right.
the pieces. Now you save them to the cloud.
mhm.
You title
So
it and then
good.
you just, yeah.
I give it a name there, and then if I just click my scores, it'll take me back to my account, and the piece will be saved right here. And I can also go through, allow sharing, so I can share these scores by link to people on and off the platform. If they're not signed in, they can just listen to it. If they are signed in, I can have the option to make a score remixable, so other users, other students can build on each other's work, and we keep track of that attribution through there. So it doesn't edit the original copy, but makes a copy that's unique to each user that's editing it. And we can also make scores available in a community section. So we have a community over here that has a list of scores that people have wanted to share publicly.
Looks great. Peter, for instruments right now, is it still strictly aimed towards orchestral instruments? Is there any way for like
Yeah, let
electronic
me
instruments or drum beats and things like that?
let me jump back in there 1 second.
This is going to be your exciting part.
Yeah, so we have a couple of different ways of handling instruments here. So you'll see by default we have a set of 8 instruments. If I come down to this select instrument set here, we have some predefined categories of instruments, and we plan on building on these now. So we're not just limited to the 128 MIDI patches, although most of these instruments right now are based on that. But we have the opportunity to build on that going forward.
Right.
So the instruments within each instrument set are kind of organized roughly by function. So you can think of, I composed a piece in one style, and then I'm going to have a different ensemble perform that. And yeah, I can go in and change those instruments now based on that new instrument set, but it should make sense just by swapping those instrument sets out. And each instrument set has its own set of percussion instruments that go along with that.
That's
Pete,
awesome.
you put the sketch window into general mode.
It's in general mode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You want me to try classical?
Yeah, try classical. That sounds like our clock song from our second Saturday.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff. I guess right now you can't like create a custom set of, I mean, the sets are
At some
organized a certain
point,
way, but
hopefully,
at some point.
Yeah.
And we're also talking about possibly adding like bird song instrument set, like talking to the Cornell ornithology folks, and yeah, we'll have a lot of
That's
fun.
really cool.
Yeah, and yeah, maybe we should share some of these second Saturday workshop items, because we're kind of excited about this. We started a Zoom workshop, so we realized that most teachers have not taught composing for, especially in elementary and middle school level. It's just not a thing. You're unusual, Kevin.
I don't really teach it. I just kind of let the kids go to it. So
yeah. And so, but we thought, I mean, you're comfortable personally, you're a musician, you compose, so you're comfortable with the idea that if a teacher hasn't done that, I thought it could be a little intimidating. And so we modeled the second Saturday workshop on a a writing workshop I do where you share a prompt at the beginning, and it could be, it's usually an image, it could be words or something, but you then just kind of talk about, well, what are some feelings, and just generate a list of words, and then talk about them amongst yourselves, and then start composing. So we build a piece, and it's a 1-hour Zoom workshop. And Peter, if you want to share the community screen, we can kind of talk through like how we did some of these, and we're always looking for like more, I'm sure Kevin, you may or may not want to introduce the kids in this way, but just wanted to share what we were doing. So this one is we called it Cappy's Day, and we started out with, let's create a character, and then try to express something about that character with music. So one of the participants, we decided, how about pick an animal that has, that you like. So someone said, I love capybaras. So, and then we said, okay, well, what does the capybara evoke for you? Well, it's like kind of a chunky, friendly, waddly animal, and loves the water. So we came up with a theme. The person, I think, hummed a theme. I said, this to me sounds like capybara. So Peter, you want to play the cappy? And we also have one that's how capybara walks. It's like a that's capybara's walk. And capybara lives in the water. So I said, okay, let's create a setting for him, a musical setting. What does water sound like? And then and capybara, what does he like to do? He loves to eat fruit. And what does he sound like when he's kind of happy? And then I said, well, if he's just capybara swimming and eating, it's nice, but it's not very exciting. So let's have something exciting happen. Let's introduce another character that's going to interact with capybara. So we came up with an alligator. So that was the alligator theme. And then things happen. Well, why don't we play the song? You'll see like where we went with this this cast of characters. So that was an example of storytelling with music. I mean, this, we picked the topic maybe geared for, elementary school, but you can imagine, you can start talking about stories or create a story and render it in music. So, and you'll notice Peter had a lot of like interesting little tricks in there about, you can actually play with the dynamics of specific lines. So you have and speed up the tempo, because they're saying, okay, the alligator, like there's a race, like we gotta like, how do we make that more exciting? And how, like, oh, well, the pitch kind of conveys like capybara is getting a little panicked, and so it's a lot of fun conversations, I think, that you could have around that. So that's one example.
That's really cool.
Another
Do you-
one, oh,
And can I tell Kevin that we have been using that in schools as a group composition prompt. We do a group composition and then the students come up with higher, lower, faster, slower, longer, shorter. And then they assign a name to the piece. What do they think about? What are the feelings? And then they do that for themselves. And that's been very, very successful. I just did like 3 subbing jobs this past year, 6 weeks or more. And every student was so excited to get on their computer each day and add to their story. Once they'd done the group composition, then they had individual time to work. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful activity.
and one of the things that is exciting for us is the possibilities this opens up for like cross-disciplinary collaboration, like, literature class could collaborate with the music class to, enrich the students. It just gives them another way of expressing things and talking about the subject. So another one we did is the melt. I know Peter's I got the cursor on there. So this was a science sort of nature theme where the prompt was actually a sound of a melting iceberg or ice cap, like polar ice cap. And you hear like almost like rain, like this water dripping down, but then you also hear these eerie pops that turn out to be the sound of really ancient air bubbles being released. And there's a little, so, we're thinking like, well, let's say you had a science unit about climate change, and here's a piece that is inspired by hearing, the sound of what does climate change sound like, and then try expressing that musically. So Peter, should we just play? Yeah, go through the piece.
Mm.
So anyway, that gets more into like personal, like emotions. How does that, the idea of, how does that make you feel? And also, what are the qualities of the sound that kind of evoke those feelings, and and also capture the phenomenon that's being kind of portrayed and so on. So, I mean, the possibilities are endless. So.
Peter, can you still export the composition as a MIDI file or a
Yes.
separate MIDI? Yep.
And you can also play back through an external MIDI synth on certain platforms that support that through web applications. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So you can export as both MIDI and also as an audio file. So that would be really like a simple thing, and someone could then overlay that as a soundtrack, so like for a silent movie or something.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah. You have any questions?
No, Peter answered both of mine. So yeah, it looks very cool. It looks awesome.
Well,
June,
great.
June, have you had a chance to share the theology behind inverted pedagogy, like using that as a methodology?
Oh, well, we might have talked about it before, but I think, sounds like Kevin, you kind of basically are doing that, but I think the idea really is, instead of putting all the theory and all that in the front and then saying you got to learn this before you can compose, it's like just start making sounds and see what you think, see how you feel about it. See what happens when you change this or that, make a note longer, add another note over it, change the instruments, and kind of just to us, that's what's important about music, right? How does it make you feel, and how different sounds create different effects, and then learning how to manipulate them and to be able to express something you're trying to express. And so that's what we call inverted pedagogy. And then you can back into like, oh, that's called polyphony when two sound, or
Yep.
you can put labels once the kids hear it and then say there's a name for that. And I would think they would be more motivated and excited to know that there's that they recognize a particular concept and there's a way to talk about it. And so.
Yeah, I love that idea. That's kind of how I structure most of my teaching, is to kind of have them discover what they want. And it's, I don't avoid notation in my classroom, but I don't really promote it. But if I can get students interested into performing and playing, they'll eventually lead themselves towards the avenue of notation and trying to figure out what that is. And when they want to know how to read the music, that's when they're going to be engaged, and that's when they're going to be want to do it. So same idea here, right? Just kind of letting them figure it out. And a lot of times if they can figure the stuff out on their own, I know that a lot of the other software that I work with, they're going to remember it 10 times better than if I told them, this is how you change the tempo, this is how you change the volume. If they figured it out on their own, then they've got that, and then they can they can work on more advanced stuff.
And I think the Hyperscore interface, I think it maps naturally to traditional notation, but but first the length of the line actually is the length in time, but now you can say, well, there's a shorthand way of representing it as a white note or a black note, or putting so. But first they need to grasp the idea of different time intervals and so on and whatever. So and the pitch is just on the vertical up and down. So, and I think probably kids who have learned traditional notation, they'll get Hyperscore right away. I mean, it's like so anyway, we're really excited to see what you do with it.
I'm going to try it out with my 6th graders this year, jump back into it and see how it goes.
Awesome. And just reach out to us anytime if you have questions or want support, or just to show. We would love to see what's going on, so that we would love to.
Of course.
We're excited about it. Great.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. This is going to be fun.
Thank you so much, and we look forward to hearing how things go over the coming year.
I'll definitely be in touch.
Okay, and have a great rest of your summer.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.